Not yet participated in any of the forums. Actually, this is my first time.
Yes, some years back, I have attended budget as somebody to participate.
Lakini nimeparticipate kwa kazi pale nafanya kazi.
Sekta ya ukulima, sekta ya afya bora, elimu, zote zinatakiwa kuwa katika mpangilio wa kupatiwa pesa fulani.
Elimu, na transport, hospitali, etc.
Transport, education, health, all those.
Transport atapata 30%, elimu 30%, hospitali 40%. Fanya hivyo kwa sababu sekta ya hospitali iko muhimu sana.
I would give that to agriculture. I would also give that to health. Then that 25 to education, and also the remaining one to the water.
What we focus on a lot is how is it that the public can better understand how budgets are developed, how your money is spent, and everything in between. So our big focus is always on budget transparency. You as a citizen, how do you access your budgets? Do you understand them? Are they helpful for you whenever you're trying to understand what the government is doing? Secondly, we also focus a lot on public participation. The reason why we want the public to access budgets is because we want them to engage better. So for example, what we are doing today is part of our initiative to kind of see how is it that public participation can improve when it comes to how we prepare our budgets in the country. And now, of course, you know, we have county and national. So there's a lot of participation that we have to do as citizens. Every year in February, the national government, at the national level, that you still have your ministries and you still have your Ministry of Finance, at the national level, we have to decide how much money we are going to give all the sectors that exist in government. At the national level, we have 10 sectors. Under each of those sectors, there are a number of ministries. So for example, under the sector education, you have a number of ministries there. You have a state department for basic education, you have a state department for university education, and the rest. So in February, the decision that we make at the national level is how much money are we going to give to each of the 10 sectors. What counties are spending is around 20% of the budget. 80% of the budget still sits at the national level. And some very important functions of government, kama education, security, are still seated with the national government. So we need to engage with that level as well. There are a number of things that I want you to keep in mind when you'll be making your decisions. And these are a number of factors that definitely should inform how much money will we distribute among two sectors. When you're trying to decide how much money should I give to this sector, you want to look at how much money we've given them before. And that within the same context, you also want to think about ongoing projects. There are projects that take more than 1 year to implement. So when we are making decisions about how much money to give to each of the sectors, we need to know how much money those sectors have been receiving before, and whether there are any ongoing projects that we need to be aware of so that we don't have white elephants all over the place. Every year, the government has its own proposal of how much money they should give to each of the sectors. So there are functions that now sit with the county government, and so when we are budgeting, we need to know which functions are we actually budgeting for. So when you will be deciding today how much money to distribute among national sectors, you need to be aware of what the national functions are. So just because something has a lot of money doesn't mean it's a priority. That's something I want us to keep in mind. And as you'll be looking through the sectors that we'll discuss today, I want you to keep in mind more of how are the allocations to those sectors changing over time because that gives you a better idea of what the priority is. Education ikiwa na 300 billion shillings, hata ianguke na 5 billion shillings, it's still the most expensive sector, si ndio? Every year, we give every sector money. Every year, they spend the money. The question is, how well do they spend that money? If we give you 100 shillings to spend on something, at the end of the year, we should come back and ask ourselves, did they spend the 100 shillings they asked for? And number two, did they achieve the things they said they will achieve with their 100 shillings? You are thinking, is the kind of money that is being budgeted for by this sector reliable enough? Are we sure that this money will actually come? And what does historical trends tell us? For example, in Kenya, we know that departments that are dependent on loans struggle to spend money because sababu loan huwa zinakuja at different times of the year. Sometimes they come very much towards the end of the year. And as you know, with government procurement, it takes a long time. So pesa ikikuja towards the end of the year, then it means hiyo ministry inaweza kosa kutumia hiyo pesa within that year. At the end of the year, it will be written that that ministry did not actually achieve its budget's obligations. When you'll be deciding about how to share money between those two sectors, the decision that also you have to make among your groups is, what do you think is the right route for development? Is it about developing human capacity, or is it about developing the physical infrastructure? Because that's a philosophical question that every year and every country has to think about.
We have two levels of government. We have national government and counties. And counties, we have how many governments? 47 of them. Every government at the two levels has to decide how much money to allocate to different sectors.
In Murang'a, there were very heated arguments around the choices that they were making. But then a lot of that was informed by people's own understanding about how government sectors work and what the objective of those sectors should be. And in a way, we found people borrowing a lot from their own experiences. So if it is in education or infrastructure, there was a general conceptualization with the group about how those sectors should work in determining the development agenda of the country.
For you to have good education and even the performance in the schools, you need to give a good environment for the students to learn. So infrastructure falls there, and we have energy on a steamer. So the children and the institutions, they need the energy. So I think that is why it's given higher percentage than the education, because it's being captured somewhere.
Your house.
The 400.
Among the 400ers. So we expect that even when they are going to budget, they also expect more of your person. Kuna kitu kama utamakidiscuss in the future in budgetary allocation ya energy ni kwa
committee more funds
hanyiha
Kwenye
ndio kuona kama
baraka inaonekana kutoka na leo mkupia in the future.
Mana teacher service commission not quite expect mango kila pesa nyingi we do recruit more teachers. What's surprising about this sector? It is a number of enrollment of new students, teachers, school infrastructure.
Having there been an increase in the teachers, the most important thing is that the ratio of teacher and the student has reduced from 44 to 44. Which means the coverage, it increases the coverage. Ita inapata mo
ninga buyalimu man namegomo manager matuba mo CP. What is this to say? The teachers high demands for salaries considering the economic state of the country.
This sector doing bad.
no, coordination and disagreements between the teachers and the administration. Na pia serikali, because when wakuwa na the strikes na migomo yao, serikali haiwasikizi.
Ikiweka kali surprise mno in one sector area. Increased building of roads that we have never experienced before. open up the farmers. Maundu maya mangĩ
negatuĩka mĩciĩ ya kuona more revenues to the government.
With good infrastructure, the economy grows.
After we've learned about these two sectors, I want all of us as a group now to make the decision on how much money do we think we will give to those sectors based on what we've learned now, and also based on our experience in terms of what those two sectors do. What proportion of 100% would you give to each of them? The only thing I'll ask is make sure you support your answer in a way that you convince the next person. The first step to making an agreement is convincing the person next to you. So, ukisema education 50 na infrastructure 50, make sure you give a reason that will convince everyone. Na kila mtu aseme enyewe hapo, chenye amesema ni ukweli, hata mimi nimekubali 50-50.
I would give infrastructure 60%.
Infrastructure 60.
And give education 40%. We were trying to see, after 4 years, we produce 1 million from 4 rivers. 70,000 go to university. Out of the 70,000, 10% are focus and material. The remaining 930,000 are Kurima. They are not adding as much as infrastructure would in the
economy.
Garissa Road was built by NYS sometimes back. NYS guys are trained for 6 months. And they built that road, and it's one of the best roads in the country. So we don't need to put 70% in education so that we produce great minds. We just need to be organized.
Look at the NYS, imebadilika sasa. NYS hawasomeshi PhDs na degrees, wanasomesha technical courses. Hizo zitasaidia nchi. Ukisema to invest education 70%, tulipatia 70%. Those great minds wataenda wapi? Nje ya country. You are good at infrastructure.
So how many are for 60 to education and 40 to infrastructure? How many? 3? Oh, the number has gone up? Infrastructure 60% and education 40%. How many? Whatever percentage you had in mind, now you can put it down.
On every February, 2 things have to be done in Kenya. One, we have to make a decision. Parliament has to make a decision between how much money will go to county governments and how much money will go to the national government. But at the same time, the national parliament has to decide for the national government how much money for each of the sectors. So let's assume there is 100 shillings. And we will use the example of 100 shillings for quite some time, for the whole day actually. There's 100 shillings. So we decide 70 shillings will go to national government, 30 shillings will go to counties. So for these 70, we need to divide it between those 10 sectors. But today we will only look at how many sectors? 4, for purposes of our learning and our engagement. So I'm going to give 2 or 3 of us to tell us how much they would allocate, and then we will debate those options and discuss it here in plenary. They have to give us the reasons for them, and then you also need to weigh your own reasons and tell us, so that we discuss here and we close this matter. Is that okay?
Okay, 60% for education and 40%. The reason being, the government is a community entity, or rather the creation, the idea behind the creation of a government is that it is a community entity. Education should never be a business enterprise whereby people are forced to pay for knowledge. But for infrastructure, we can get private sector chipping in a lot of money. So it is the responsibility of the citizens through public or government-public interactions, partnerships, that they build the infrastructure. But for education, it is government.
For me, I would take education 65%. Then I would give infrastructure 35%. Then for 65%, sometimes if you look at education, is sometimes economy-based or human. It requires a lot of human resource, which requires a lot of resources.
Yes.
On the other side of, and again, the moment we educate people, either through higher education, TVET and all that, people become more empowered. People will start their own businesses. The government will get taxes from these same people who are educated. They will use now these tax to build the infrastructure and economic growth.
When ukitengeneza barabara, utaimprove na manyumba na pia upate energy. First of all, utatengeneza barabara. Watu wako mashinani watafikisha, let's say wakulima watafikisha vitu zao sokoni on time, they sell, they pay for their kids' education.
I want us to draw back our minds to the time that Africa was getting their independence.
Yes.
That governments that invested in education first were able to absorb the students. When walikuwa wanamaliza, waka-absorb kwa kazi vizuri. So the population was getting employed. But those governments that decided that they needed to set away the Europeans and the colonialists without getting the educated people, their companies were collapsing. So I tend to believe that the one that should get much more government support is education, so that it boosts the other projects.
I think for us to get the fruits of this lion share we are talking about, of which I stated them, can curriculum be more competence-based? As my brother is talking of an engineer coming out in the university, and he or she is not that competent enough to an extent of hiring an engineer from outside there. We make it more competence-based in a way that if a student is getting to university, let him go to the area where he or she feels fit. We don't have a doctor in the university who allows him just went there because the father wants him to be a doctor. And maybe that person is supposed to be a DJ. You get the point? Yes. And it should be, even if we are giving the education the right share, let the education be competence-based, whereby students are trained in according to what the student feels is fit for him. And then at the end of it all, we shall get the benefits of this right sharing ability education.
When we allocate the education sector more, it doesn't mean that everyone who goes to school will end up excelling. And that's why we have allocated so much to the education. So I would suggest, because we need more equal jobs, when they fail on this side, now they come and get results.
60, infrastructure 40. How many want that? By show of hand. Education 60, infrastructure 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 of us want education 60, infrastructure 40. How many want infrastructure, education 40, infrastructure 60? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Each representative from each group will come and present to us their division, how they shared the money between the two sectors, and their 3 reasons. So a very short presentation.
Protection, we have given it 40%, and governance, justice, law, and order, we have given it 60%. Reason number 1 as to why we give the governance 60% is because in governance, there are a lot of departments compared to social, whereby the governance sector requires or does a lot of perils. Reason number 2 is that the government has has to invest more in governance and security for the social protection, culture, and recreation to improve. 1, if you do not have security, even in your day-to-day life, you cannot invest. That's a fact. If you do not have security, you cannot send your children to school. If you do not have security, you cannot do anything that a normal human being can do to better his life. So that's why we give governance 60% and social protection 40%. Reason number 3 was actually in reference to page 7 also. If you look at how the ongoing project, because I believe this is an ongoing project, that governance is going to be given maybe 81% and social protection 19%. This means that the performance of governance is quite high. You'll all agree with me that the performance of governance is quite high compared to that of social protection, culture, and recreation. Because if you look at the programs that fall under social protection, culture, and recreation, these are sports and the likes, the labor and all that.
Social protection, we found it is good to put it at 40%. Then governance, justice, and law and order, 60%. And the reason why we gave this, number 1 is that, let me start with governance. Justice, law and order is wide and covers many state departments of the country, bearing in mind that it also provides a lot of collective services. It's wide because it has 14 MDAs, yeah, and six on social protection. And the most important law about this sector, also it protects security, legal advice. So it's a collective responsibility of that department. They're also very important, of course. If you look according to the way they are implemented, it seems that they were all planned well. It's only when it comes to implementation down there, there is a lot of corruption, no transparency, and maybe whatever is made on the desk is very good. But when it comes down there, along the way, it gets lost. And so it is not implemented well at the ground.
We allocated social security, culture, and recreation 20%. Governance, justice, law and order, 80%. The reason being, one thing we observed, we went back to the factors and we noted that the governance, justice, law and order has been allocated much money than social. Okay, we went back in our discussion, we said that for social to be given that 20% was because they need governance. That is, the governance, it entails of police, whatever. So, for the Wanjiko, that is the social protection, which is covering Wanjiko vulnerable children, citizens, and welfare of children. First, they have to be protected. So, considering that, we noted that we empower the governance much than the social. Considering the governance as various departments, which are more, they are 14, and the social has 6. With all these departments and the governance being very important to the government, because this department is correctional services, promotes security, peace building.
So we decided we at least raise on social protection to 30%, and then have governance, justice, law and order at 70%. And these are the reasons. Reason number one, when we increase that on social protection, we are likely to decrease the crime rates. And once we decrease the crime rates, the proportion we had taken from governance will be taken because crime itakuwa kidogo, kwa hivyo polisi will not need those equipments and whatever. That is, and we will achieve that by giving women loans, vijana, kuwajengea viwanja. That's point number one. Reason number two, we need to focus on the less fortunate in our society, the street children, the people with disabilities. We need to bring them level with the common person so that they are not discriminated against wakue at the same level. That's the reason number two. Reason number three, there's this thing called dependency levels in our society, whereby if I am working, I'm feeding my grandfather, my grandmother, my 8 children, my disabled neighbor. So when we increase the social protection allocations, we will see the government will take care of those the elderly, watachukua shosho, wachukue the people with the disabilities, yule kijana street boy naendaga nikipatia mkate asubuhi, he will be taken care of. So mimi ile natafuta itakuwa yangu, and maybe I'll be able to invest somewhere and grow the economy. That's our that information that would make us change these allocations is maybe if before allocating the money, we were told that we have a very big earthquake in the coastal region that needs very serious evacuation, and it needs 40 billion, and that falls under social protection, culture and education. Maybe we could have, if we got that information before doing our budget. Or maybe we heard that there's an uprising somewhere in huko Msituni, there's an uprising, and maybe we need more police with more equipment. That would have made us alter our allocations. Thank you.
Okay, so 2575. Stucky celebration. How many are those? In a democracy, you still have to count all of them. 15. Okay, then 2080. That is 3. Okay, so how many people do we have in the room? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 21. When you just have a small set of information, you're actually able to engage quite in depth. So we are hoping that that is something that we'll be able to share with government. But the second option is that we hope for all of you, in whatever areas you work in, whenever you're engaging with government and they tell you, how is it that, you know, whenever we complain about public participation, wanasema, so mnataka tuifanye aje? I hope we can have an option of telling them, why don't you think about informing us better? Okay, the point you are making about transparency. Give us the budget documents, tell us how we can understand them, then we come into those rooms and we have a more intelligent conversation. Okay? So that is something that I think also will be useful as a takeaway for today.
With now this information that we have just shared on factors to consider, I would like you to go to the groups and now together go through that material about those two sectors. But
You must have to weigh the two of them. Then you know the security in governance and justice, law and order, that's a very big docket. But I think also to be emphasized on our culture, let's go there to fight for our culture.
and recreation. If we didn't lose our culture, we wouldn't be having all these problems. You see, we will support that. So,
now you see on social protection may involve gender.
Obviously, no one who is not affected, and yet cultural, all everybody in the society. It's okay. So when you come to this, justice, me has
so you know about how to promote equality agenda, how to respect children's rights. Obviously, justice may here. So I think social protection should have the largest.
70.
Creation, we have allocated 60. And for governance, justice, law and order, we have allocated 40. So on question 1, why did we give the reasons? Or the first reason that we have given is that by giving more to social protection, culture and recreation, we give it an opportunity for increased employment, for social benefit, that will help reduce crime, while for the GJLO, that is governance, justice, law and order, for them they actually deal with what has already happened. So for them, they are dealing with an outcome, but not preventing the problem. And as all of us know, is that prevention is always better than cure. So we found out that what we need to do is invest more in these activities that will promote culture and recreation, as they will increase employment and help on that. The reason 2 that we have given is on culture, that culture, by investing or putting more in social protection, culture and recreation, is that we shall be boosting the economy, both the local economy and the national economy for almost every person. Then we shall, by preserving our culture, it will also help us deal with some cases that affects the community, maybe like blood cases, like domestic violence. That one will not require us to put too much capital or too much money in the governance, justice and law, because those are issues that communities can solve for themselves. Then the third reason that we have given is that if you look at the MDAs that are there for the social protection, culture and recreation, it involves Uwezo Fund, it involves Women Fund, it involves Fund for the Disability, National Disaster Management, and we know these are things that come along with us. The allocation that was given was just 45 billion. And when you look at for the government,
our allocation is 29 to Social Protection, Culture and Recreation, and 71 to GJLO. The first reason is historical allocations. And that is, according to the last allocations done, that is from the previous year, the allocation given should be added because of the emerging issues. That one of the issues that can emerge is from the anti-FGM. The second reason we are talking of is emerging issues. Example, the coming year, there should be no elections. Therefore, the allocations of IBC should be out. The third reason, GLO performs throughout the year, whereas the SPCR performs termly.
To give us one reason from the ones you listen to, from all the groups, just tell us one reason and the group that made it and why you think it is adequate. Let's first look at adequate reasons.
It's the issue of social protection, given 7%, the other one is 30%, no problem. The issue of it is more involving across the society, which is very important. I actually give it high. Because if you look at the issue of this issue of law, these prisons you are talking about, we did not start with the prisons. First of all, we failed in the society. So at the moment we empower the society to deal with these minor things, whereby they empower their children right from their the childhood. This issue of law and all that, they will not do them. So I think being more involving in the society is a very key thing.
Key thing. But what causes crime? It's losing culture. Kama hakuna culture, as in if they inaanza kwanza wapi nyumbani. If we don't like take care of our own in the society, that's why we need policing. Kama tuko na tunashughulika na nyumbani from the village, hakutakuwa na crime, so we would need police.
IEC was allocated money to conduct elections. What is the need for them to be allocated the same amount of money in 2018, probably in 2018-2019, yet there's no election? That money will be reduced. The recurrent expenditures, the projects, the money for other projects will still continue, but only that specific amount of money that had been allocated for election will be reduced so that it can be done.
You will go back to the reasons and then you will give me the two papers together. That one, because you will need it when you're filling this, and the last one. And then after that, we will just do a vote of thanks, and all the papers for all the discussions are here, so something to refer, so you don't need to feel confused. Everything that we have discussed is here, and therefore I'm going to ask you to pick one and pass over. Remember to start with your personal code, and then once we do this, we're just going to have a closing prayer, and then we have tea awaiting us, and we can all go.